Once you have this guy, you've got your center line here set up. So this is kind of a weird part. And there are different ways of learning shoemaking. I learned a very like artisanal way of doing it. There's also a really technical way for like factories, and that's really complicated. I did not understand that way. It did not work for me. I learned from like an 80-year-old Italian guy who didn't speak any English. He just like, I just watched what he was doing, and it just made so much sense. And it wasn't so overly technical, because unless you want to be a bespoke shoemaker, then you need the overly technical. If not, you can make beautiful shoes. Most Italian shoemakers are artisanal shoemakers. They just do it. And this is way more straightforward. All right, so you're gonna take the last and you put it against the edge of the table, okay? And what you're looking for, and it's really hard to see, but you see where this is not touching, yeah, come around. You see where it's not touching the table here? Mm-hmm. And if you follow this, there's a point where it starts to touch the table, here. And there's a start where it lifts up from the table. The point where in the middle, between where it starts to touch and it stops touching, is what you want to mark. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you want to mark. Here, same thing on the inside. But there's no tape, doesn't matter. Okay, so here, same thing. See? Not touching, starts. Not touching, starts. Right there in the middle of that shape. Get a little graphite there. So usually you can make just enough of a little mark to see here, and that's great. So you have that. Measuring tape. Here. Soft tape. Gonna connect these two. From here to that one. Okay? And draw a line from there to there. Okay? First framing line. Then you're going to take this, measure from the feather edge, the actual edge here. So put the right on the line to the center, right? 7, right? So take that and divide it in 2. Okay, and then we're going to mark it 3.5 here. Okay, mark that. Now we're going to mark the back line from the top of the cone, from the feather edge coming up. It's at 7. So what we're marking here is where the top of the shoe, the top line is going to be. Like, where is it going to stop? It cannot come, it can, if you want to, come all the way to the top, but it's going to jam into your Achilles tendon. Not good, blister, right? So you got to come down a little bit so it doesn't get to that point. So that's the point in which we're looking at. Okay, so if I measure from the bottom, feather edge point to here, it's 7. A good rule of thumb, from the top of the last, if you have a low last like this, come down 1 cm. Right, so we're at 6. You can come down 1.5 if you want to bring it down, but at least come down a centimeter so you're not at the top where you're going to get a blister here. So I'm going to bring it down 1. Okay, and I'm going to mark that line. And then after this is the last part of kind of making a frame, is that we're going to connect this and this. And the whole point of this is it gives you a point of reference as to where and what you are drawing on. If you just draw on this straight cold, it's hard to tell even where you are and where you should be. You can draw anything that you want on there, but it's a good point of reference. So, let's see, this way, is it this way, or this way? All right, so this is a really weird way that I learned to do it. Weird Italians. So, and so that you can connect this, keep it nice and tight here. with my top line in the back. Okay? And now I have the framework for a ballet flat, right? Or driving shoe, or a loafer, right? If you bring the tongue up and you have a little loafer style or whatever that is. So at this point, you sketch it on. This is a really high, choked up, almost like a Tom's pattern, right? Where it's really, really high. Right. You're not gonna see any of the fingers, what they call on the foot, I don't know why. You're not gonna see any here, right? All that's gonna be covered, and you're just gonna see your instep, like only skin here. No toes, no anything. Here at this point, so that you understand where you are. Your ankle is like around here. Generally speaking, you do not want the top line to ride on your ankle. That is also a blister. So most shoes are going to, even if the top line is here, right, what we're gonna do is then bring this down and not have it be quite so straight. Because here, if I want to lower this a little bit, then I'm gonna come around here, right? So you can kind of start to see how it's gonna come around. So that's the idea, right? Is then you're kind of sparing the ankle pain here, and you're coming, kind of cutting underneath there, coming around. You can lower this. This is all framework. You can lower this as low as you want. If you go much more than here, you're gonna have kind of a lot of toe out. Okay, if you go all the way here, it's not gonna stay on because you have nothing, very little holding the toes on. So again, if you cut the pattern that way, because that's what you want to do, you'd have to compensate for this in some way with a strap or something that's gonna hold it on if you want to go that way. But either way, this is just the basics of patterning and how to kind of get that laid out. And once you have this, this is kind of the goal that I want you to kind of try to get to, be working towards getting to this point. Drawn on, I'll post this video also. But just drawn on, taped, drawn on, framing line, and sketch in a top line here. If you want to make this like a wavy top line, or you want to do something like that, I think that's fine. If you want to go lower or higher, or if you want to do something like this where it's like a slip-on, or that's fine, but we got to keep it in one piece so we don't get too overly complicated with this at this point. But yeah, let's just try to get to that point.
Loafer would build from this line traditionally?
A loafer?
Yeah. Or would it build from whatever you feel?
It's hard to say like exactly where it's going to build because it's different styles, right? But generally the loafer, it's not coming all the way up here. This point is like all the way up here, right? And it's not going to come that high. It's like kind of down here, right? And then you're coming, and then you're kind of turning at a point and bringing it here. So I would say it's, you see what I'm saying? Because you still see a little bit before you actually get to your leg, like for a loafer. So,
you could go lower though.
Sure,
right?
Sure, yeah, because there's some, like I've seen some that are like this little piece is just like really small, and it's a really low profile one, right? That's it. Right. And that's also anything like that. So you could look at loafers or driving shoes or any of those and see if there's any inspiration there. But at this point, like we just got to keep it one piece, because once we start the patterning, it's going to be a little bit